Hilltop Farm. I'm Jay, and today I'm finally bringing you guys the February farm diary. So you'll see what we've planted and what's happening around the farm. But just before we start, those of you that saw my video on seed saving 2 days ago, I did say it's a bit breezy. I hope that's not creating havoc with the sound, by the way. Oh, those of you that saw the video a couple of days ago on seed saving, I did make reference to the fact that I was going to show you something outside to do with radishes and seed saving. So I'll show you just here. Now this is a rather overgrown, rather dead looking radish, but can you see just there? I'm going to focus. There we go. Okay, now that is obviously seed pod for the radish, right? And there's lots of them on here, you will notice. One thing to note, when these are young and they first appear, and obviously the plant's green and these are green, you can pick them and add them to salads. In Victorian and Edwardian England, it was more common to use these in salads than it was the root. And I have done it, and they do taste almost identical to a radish. So do bear in mind, you can do that with your radishes. I'd say they weren't quite as bitey, so if you find radishes a bit strong, grow them, let them go to seed, and eat the pods while they're still green. But as I say, these pods, I've just been and dropped all the seeds all over the floor, but see that? It was terrible, this thing will not focus today. It's focusing on the background. Anyway, you split them open like that and retrieve the seeds out of them. So, let's get on with the rest of this diary. The ducks are just coming out of a heavy molt. They're all a bit frisky. They started, well, at least one of them started laying yesterday, which they haven't done for the last 2 months. So they're a bit frisky and a bit noisy, so you have to bear with farm life, I'm afraid. Okay, so what have we done in February? February here in South Australia is one of those horrible months where you're busy. The glut that you have had through sort of December, January and all the canning is slowing down, and we're sort of coming to an end. A lot of things are finishing, hence the seed saving, as I said in my last video. I don't know if you can see, I'm sitting next to the corn, which has absolutely had it. There's a few potatoes back behind me that have seen better days, and I must say they did get neglected. The bed had all fresh compost put in it, and it all sunk down, and rather than top it up as we were meant to, other things got away with us and we ignored it, and now we quite literally have quite a few kilos of potatoes, some of them yay far out of the ground in little piles of lovely green potatoes. So in the coming days we're going to be harvesting all that lot, and then we're going to go through and work out what's edible and those that aren't we'll put to one side and chip for next time, because at the end of the day it doesn't matter if they're green if you're going to use them as seed potatoes. They just look a bit weird. So anyway, so that's what's happening there. In a moment after I finished here in the greenhouse, I will show you the beds that we planted out in January. absolute disaster, as I predicted they would be. As I said at the time, beets and swede or rudabakers, our nemesis, and carrots, just terrible. I think we've got 2 or 3 carrots, about the same in beetroot come up, no rudabakers at all. And we think something got to the radishes and the spring onions. But anyway, it was a total disaster. And on top of all that, within 5 days maybe of planting all that, we haven't had a very hot summer this year. It's been quite bizarre. I don't personally remember, well I do. Last time we had a summer like this was the summer of 98, 99. And it never really got hot. We had a couple of heat waves, which is normal. It's normally pretty constantly hot, and then we get heat waves, probably half a dozen, 8 of them through the summer, that last a few days where it's stifling. Well, we had one of those really, really early in November, which is not normally when we have them. And then I think we've had 2 since, but they haven't been stiflingly hot. They've been warm and uncomfortable and not pleasant, but not the sort of heat where you step outside the door and you feel like you're going to die. But anyway, we did have one, about 5 days after the seeds were planted, and I think that anything that was struggling to come through, I think got wiped out. Anyway, I went into panic mode, and I planted, let me think, I think I planted beetroot and the swede and rutabaga in module trays, and put them in the greenhouse, which I know may seem really weird to a lot of you. Put it in a greenhouse in summer, but it's not so much the heat the problem in South Australia. It is, you cannot begin to describe unless you live in a state like it. I think you'll find that, you know, Arizona is like it in the US. It's where they store planes because it's so dry that they don't deteriorate. There's no moisture. And South Australia is like that in the summer. You can go for literally weeks and weeks and weeks without any rain. And when you do, it literally is not enough to wet the ground. So half the thing is not so much the heat, it's keeping the moisture in, because you can water the garden beds and hours later you dig in the soil and you're dealing with dust. Absolute dust. So we put it in modules, put them in the greenhouse. You know, once it gets over about 25 C, we leave the door open during the day. The roof vents are open all the time. We're getting to that stage now where the nights are just starting to get a little bit cool. So it won't be long until we start closing it up at night. And we close the door at night, just to keep, you know, cats and vermin and everything like that out. But yeah, it's through the day, it's open. And as we get that extreme heat, we bring them in and put them somewhere in the shade and just water them multiple times a day. But as I say, you're only talking a few days for the most part being in here. Well, those modules, they were a bit leggy. I mean, the rutabagas and that, well, they weren't a great success, but the beetroot did quite well, but they're a bit leggy. They need to go in the garden. I'm not really sure if they'll come to anything because they're so leggy, but I kind of feel like we've fought this hard to get them this far, and they're probably 4, maybe 5 weeks old now, something like that. Anyway, they're virtually due to go in the garden, and I'll take you in the greenhouse in a moment and show you those. obviously, because of all that disaster, we had a bit of a rethink when the February planting came round. And I must confess, on top of that, my daughter Kate, that does most of the helping on the farm with me, she was ill, I was ill. Wasn't COVID. I think I said that before, but it wasn't COVID. But it was a heavy cold, and so it was easier to do a lot of the planting inside. We were comfortable, and we could, you know, I think we sort of watched Netflix and what they call it, crammed or binged or something. I don't know. We did that. Anyway, so all that is gone into modules, with the exception of the radishes. Now what we did, well, where are we? It's all written down here somewhere. Now, what I did is I went through my seeds, and I realised I had so many different varieties. Some of them, you know, in date, some of them out of date, some of them, and it depends where you get them from as to how they do their dates, and I find it so confusing. One of the best seed companies we've had experiences with is Baker's Creek heirloom seeds in the US. But the problem is with Baker's Creek, they mark their packets differently to other people. They put, they say packed for, and they put the date they were packed. I'm not an expert. That doesn't necessarily mean anything to me, because I sort of, and because they're in a different, their seasons are out of kilter to ours. You sort of think, well, how many seasons does this last for? Anyway. So, I had so many seed packets, and I thought, okay, I'm going to sow, and a lot of them wasn't enough to sow a garden bed, you know, a few seeds. So I thought, well, I'm going to get rid of all, over the next 12 months, I'm going to get rid of all my crappy old seeds by planting them. If they come up, great. If they don't, then they don't. So you'll see when we go inside, a lot of the trays, you know, they've only got half a dozen things in them, and you think, oh, is that it? It's because it's old seed, and we're lucky to get that. Okay, so what we planted is the cucumber. Now the cucumber are about this big and are ready to go in. So we'll be planting those. Oh, carrots I planted direct. I think carrots. Yes, carrots are going in direct. But of course there's not a single hint of them anywhere. Then we planted, we've got leeks. Now I planted American flag, Bulgarian giant, and Carinthian. So there you go. We've got our lettuce, the butter crunch. We've got the stuff we planted in January that needs to go into the garden, and we've got the ones we planted beginning of February that are almost ready to go into the garden. So we're so far behind here. Spring onions, there's a few of those coming up, but again they were old packets. And I've got numerous radishes. Radishes like you would not believe. Okay, some were end of packets, some were exotic types that I bought from Baker's Creek heirloom on a whim because they look interesting, and I haven't ever planted them. So I'm trying a lot of those. Now those have only just been planted, so there's nothing to see. I'll show you where they are. But there's French breakfast. There's a yellow radish that I don't know the name of because I gave them to my mum, and she tore off the name off the packet, planted some and gave the rest back. and I don't know what the name is. I'm going to have to go on the Bakers Creek website and find the picture of them to get the name. I know they're yellow. Anyway, we've got Chinese red, purple plum, a Chinese, oh, I can't read my own writing here, Shao or something like that, a red beauty, China rose. So, you know, who knows what's going to come up. In beetroots, I've got Crosby's Egyptian. Oh, it looks like that's the only one I might have done in those. I thought I'd done multiple. Oh yes, I have, sorry. I've also done Early Wonder and Bull's Blood. Right, they're all purple. Now my Swedes and Rudabakers, I've done American Purple Top and Never Own Yellow. Now you'll see when I get them out, the ones I did in February, very different result to the ones that I did in January. I mean, they hardly came up, they're all leggy and horrible. These other ones, quite a bit came up, and then they're nowhere near as leggy, so I don't know, maybe it's the variety, I really don't know. But then there was a whole load of onions we planted. Again, many of them way out of date. So we've got a long tropea and a round tropea. I think it's the long one we seem to have a lot of success with, and the round one no. Got crimson bunching. We've got a shallot, which I had high hopes for, but we've only got half a dozen of those come through. We've got a Californian red onion, which is doing quite well, and a Hunter River brown, which is doing okay. Alright, so that's really what we've been planting out here. Now I'll take you into the greenhouse and I'll show you the trays. Right, now, excuse the mess, won't you everybody? Okay, we're in a bit of a, like the rest of the farm, we're in a bit of a pickle. Now, this is the beetroot that we planted in January, when we went into panic mode. But, you know, you can see it's a little bit leggy. I don't know how it will go, but yeah, we'll try. And this, sad looking little things, this is the Swede or Rutabaga. Pathetic, but there is a strip down the side there of celeriac, which is doing quite well. Now, over here, okay, this is our buttersnap lettuce from January at the front, and down the back there is one that we did about 3-4 weeks ago. We've got our cucumber that's desperately needs planting and is getting, you know, grown up leaves, like true leaves. Okay, and some spring onions. Over this side, again, you see, these are the onions, the type in the 3 rows at the back, nothing. This lot, yeah, we might get a few onions out of that. Now, this I'm impressed with. Okay, that particular beetroot is bull's blood. We only got a couple of those. Now, this is Swede or Rutabaga, and that's American Purple Top. Across here we have 2 different types of beetroot. And I've abbreviated them, so I have to go back to my book to work out what they are. But, first couple of rows closest to the camera are Early Wonder. And the other one, I think Crosby's Egyptian, because it says CE. And then we've got, again, Sweden Rudeboka at the front here, but I don't know how they'll go because they've grown really thick. There was only one row because I was using up a packet, and that's of Navone Wonder. No, Navone something. I'm hopeless with names of things. I know, Navone Yellow. Now, got leeks coming up at the back. American Flag and Belgium Giant. And then again, leeks on the back half of that tray, which are Corinthian. And in the front of this tray, I think they're clumping. They're a clumping thing. And here, spring onions at the back, shallots at the front. And over here, we've got Hunter River Brown onions at the back, and at the front here are the early Californian Reds. Okay, so as you can see, a major state of disrepair. Well, we've got some bulbs coming through there. They were summer bulbs that I found that we've got to plant. So I've brought them on and trying to trick them in the greenhouse to think the summer's just starting. So we'll see if we can save them. They're gladiola, I think. Anyway, but under, see all those bricks down there at the back? Under all that lot is actually garden beds. So hopefully we'll get all this cleared out, because I want to do some, grow some winter stuff direct in garden beds, but in here. So anyway, it's an adequate little greenhouse, and of course we have a whole little hatch in the roof there. As you can see, our tomatoes. You can see our tomatoes struggling. All the brown bits are for where we have a heat wave, and then they come back and they're lush and green, and then there's another heat wave, you know, and this is how they go generally. It's Victoria Plum. Don't know if you can see that just there, almost right. Okay, we're now in the front kitchen garden. You remember I said we had a few, just literally 2 or 3 of things come up from January's planting direct. Well, since I said that, I've just come out the front and it looks like the birds pretty much had them. This is all that's left. Can you see that just there? And there's a few, I don't know if you can see them, sort of red stalks just there in the bed. Yeah, that's pretty much all that's left, so that's great. But what we have done is, we'll keep going, we're persisting, we're determined, if nothing else. Okay, we've got our 3 different types of carrots. There's half a row at the back. There was just half a row of all seasons. And then there's 2 more varieties in 2 rows in front of that. Then we've got the radishes. We've got the front row of the French breakfast whichever comes up is my favourite. And then we've got 3 half rows of Weird and Wonderful Things from Baker's Creek. So I'm going to put a couple of pea stakes in this bed over here with some bottles on it. Hopefully it will be enough to deter, and we might get a couple of beets out of that. But that was the bed I was hoping to transplant those ones in the greenhouse into, so we've got to do something to discourage them, or they'll eat those as well. But anyway, if you saw the January diary, and I'll put a link to it on the screen at the end of the video, in case you missed it. But if you did see it, you'll know that we'll cover this now in shade cloth to help protect it from, you know, being eaten, and we'll see what happens. I've checked the weather forecast. There's, I think, 28 degrees. No. Yes, 28 degrees is the hottest it's going to be in the next 8 days, which of course takes us into March, and then when we hit March, it doesn't often go over 30 in March. It has been known, but it's not common, so hopefully it won't, and we'll get something to grow. Okay, I thought I'd just show you while we're out here. Okay, this has turned into an absolute chaotic mess. But we have, in the foreground here, we've got our beetroot, what we're talking about. We've got our rhubarb. It's actually produced some seeds here that I'm about to harvest. But anyway, but we've got a Japanese pumpkin or two. Well, the plants have gone crazy, but I can't actually see if there's any pumpkins on it. I mean, there's no sign of anything. That's not to say they're there. Now, there's a cheeky Prince pumpkin growing up here. You know, and the cheeky Prince is definitely a winner here. Oh, there's one down in there. Oh, there's a little baby one there. What else we got? I think there's a few baby ones. But I suspect it's all come through here. So I suspect we may have to wait for it to die back. See, we've even got tomato growing amongst there. If you're wondering what the noise is, well, you're coming to say hello? Are you? You're coming to say hello? Yesterday morning, at 5 o'clock, the white girl there with the black beak that's drinking, that's Odette. She woke me up at 5 o'clock, and a hell of a tease. But she was laying her first egg. She was announcing it to everybody. And it doesn't perhaps help that our bedroom window is through the undergrowth through there, so we're quite close to her. But normally we don't hear anything. Aren't these agapanthus beautiful? So pretty. And these look like got some red cabbage in here. They look like they need harvesting. We've harvested one. They look like they need some attention. So, but yes, this is our, I think, what people call a food forest. We've got all sorts of fruit trees and what have you through here. But it's a pretty little wilderness out here. So now, something else I want to show you before we go. Okay, now just before we go, I want to show you this. Here's another radish here. Right, now, as you can see, you see this? It's very prolific. Oh, no. There we go. Some of the things too far away from me don't cooperate. It's very prolific. You get lots and lots and lots of things on them. Now, when they're at this stage, okay, we're literally talking about a very small little pod. When they're at that stage, you can sort of, top and tail them, take off any nasty bits, and as I say, use those in salads to get your radish flavour. And as I say, in Victorian times and Edwardian times in England, it was more common to use these than the actual fruit. And when you eat them, they taste like radish without that overbearing sort of heat, but I like it. I'm guessing our Victorian and Edwardian ancestors weren't quite as keen as us. So, I mean, they obviously have to be left to dry. They're starting to, I see in places, they're starting to dry. This is what I was trying to show you before. Oh, got another seed, that's alright. But yeah, you just, once you pick them all, you just spend an evening, in front of the TV or, sitting around chatting and popping them open. Like shelling miniature peas. Now, occasionally when I say carrots and all those things, my notice is I have grown them. They just don't grow every time for some reason. It's very random. But I have noticed carrots due for harvesting. Now, where in a supermarket could you find such a specimen? Okay? Very, very proud making. So, this is why we go to all the effort. Not quite as impressive, but still lovely on your plate. Okay, thank you for joining me for this, and I'm so sorry it's late. Marches hopefully won't be that late, and will be out relatively soon. Oh, just quickly, I've also got a plant that I should have done a week or so ago, but I'm going to do it later today. I'm planting, broad beans and broccoli in modules to go in the greenhouse. Okay, so, that's also part of February's planting. So hopefully it'll only be about a week's time and you'll get Marches. And obviously it won't be as long a video as this, we won't have all this just updates because there won't be much to report. But yeah, I will be back for March's diary very, very soon. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any more of our videos, and until next time, it's goodbye from Hilltop Farm. See ya!